Hi, I'm Fabian, and you're in the stream. Today, a family, but on your own terms. Is the trend of co-parenting a growing phenomenon, or is it undermining traditional family? So, everybody has a take on today's conversation because we've all come from some kind of family somewhere in the world. Malika Bilal, digital producer, what is our online community saying about this subject?
Well, just that. Everyone has their own take, and so there's a lot of back and forth on what the definition of family is. So I'll give you a glimpse into one of the debates happening on Facebook. Mike writes in, a group of people who love each other more than themselves, that's family. He gets pushback though. Someone else writes in, you got it wrong. That's called social organization. Family is made of mother, father, and their children. Of course, that also got a response. So we're going to delve into all of that. We want to do so with your participation as well. Tweet us with hashtag AJStream.
So they hardly need us to get the debate going. Meanwhile, before we get the conversation started, we want to hear from you. So check out our website. It's at stream.aljazeera.com. And there we've got some exclusive web content around some of today's hashtags. Check them out. What's your definition of a family? How about this? Couple meet through an online service, agree to have a child, skip the falling in love and marriage bit, and call themselves co-parents. Is that a family? The decision to co-parent a child offers people the ability to create a family unit, but without surrogacy, adoption, or sperm donation. It's already a trend in US cities like New York and Los Angeles, and it's catching on in other parts of the world as well, like the United Kingdom and Australia. Today we'll discuss some of the ups and downs and the complexities of being in this new sort of family. And to help us do that, from Nebraska we have Dawn Pike. She's a sales and marketing manager and co-parent to a baby girl called Indigo. Dawn's co-parent to Indigo is Fabian Blue. He's joining us from New York City. From Los Angeles, co-parenting expert Rachel Hope. She's the author of Family by Choice, and she's a mother to a 23-year-old son and a 5-year-old daughter in co-parenting arrangements. And from Los Angeles, we have Ivan Flatovic. He's a founder and CEO of Madamily, a co-parenting website. So it's great to have you all here in the stream. Let's start with Dawn. Let's go back about 4 years, Dawn, and wanting to start a family, and you don't have the very important thing that you need, i.e. a man. What was in your headspace? What were you thinking?
Well, I actually did have a guy. I was with the guy for almost 10 years.
Right.
And throughout my 30s, I waited for him to be ready to have children. Finally, when I was about 38, he said, okay, I'm ready. So I got pregnant. About a year and a half later, had a miscarriage, and then shortly after that I found out he had met somebody else. So at the time I was 40 and no guy, no kids yet, no marriage, and I was devastated.
And then what? ... What did you do?
Well, I looked into adoption. I looked into fostering children. I even looked at going to the local sperm bank. However, I always wanted my potential child to know who their dad was. Right. And so I thought, well, I'll just go on Match.com and I'll find somebody. And I went out on several dates, and I found myself thinking, would this be a good dad figure?
So were you looking for a romantic partner, or were you looking for a dad?
I was.
Be honest, which one were you looking for?
Both.
Okay.
I was hoping that I would find that romantic connection, and then of course, and the family, the traditional thing would lead towards that, but it never happened. And I thought, I'm in my 40s. I've got to do something. This this isn't the way to go about it, is to rush into a relationship, even though that's what I wanted. And so one night I was Googling, I don't even know what I was Googling, but I came across a co-parenting website and I thought, oh my gosh, I think this is what I should do. I really should look for a father for my child. And
let's bring in the father of your child. I feel like this is a game show. Let's bring in the father of your child, father of Dawn's child. How did Dawn find you, Fabian?
I found her.
Oh, okay.
So, yeah, I was in a similar boat. I was looking for a co-parent, which is the word I discovered it was many years after the search started. And I was on one of those co-parenting websites. It also had a Facebook kind of attachment page. And I saw this picture of this, you know, lovely blonde woman. It was a black and white image, but it reminded me of, it was very nostalgic to me. It reminded me of my youth in the 70s, or one of those, you know, TV stars, you know, or something. There was something about her that was very familiar.
She's a little Farrah Fawcett, right?
Huh?
She's a little Farrah Fawcett. Anyway, carry on. It's your story.
Yes, well, Little Charlie's Angels, but to be honest, I always say the Bionic Woman. If you guys remember the Bionic Woman,
I do. Lindsay Wagner.
So Fabian,
on that note, I sent her a quick note. I sent her a quick note saying, "Hey, Dawn, are you looking for a co-parent? And where in Australia are you?" Because I was in Australia at the time. Her response was, you know, rather quick. You know, I think within a day, and it said, "Yes, maybe I am a co-parent, but I am in Omaha, Nebraska." And I was like, wow.
So I'm going to fast forward you for a moment to Indigo, who's on my laptop. You got to know each other. Here's the baby, Indigo. She looks gorgeous. We're going to bring in our online community because this is a very long conversation and we've got some time and other people to join in.
Right.
Malika.
Well, and that's a nice way to speed it up, seeing the product, the beautiful product of that union. But a lot of people online are taking this to, what does this mean for the institution of marriage? And does this mean that the definition of marriage has changed? And do we need marriage? So Stephen on Twitter says, marriage is not necessary. Look to the quality of relationships. A parent is anyone committed to the child's well-being. But Rachel, on the other hand, there are a lot of tweets, and this is a big sentiment in our community. Beata on Twitter says, in my opinion, marriage is necessary. It's the only healthy way for a balanced childhood. So, and I'm sure in your own life you've gotten pushback like that. What do you say to that criticism?
Well, the proof is in my healthy, well-adjusted child. So, and in many people who have alternative families who don't fit the script of a marriage child script, who are doing different kinds of families, and sometimes just by accident because they end up breaking up and then becoming a blended family, having new partners with their kids. So it's almost turning into a village, and these kids are turning out great. My child is very well adjusted. I know lots of other families where their child is very well adjusted. So I think that we need to take a look at all the different kinds of healthy, well-adjusted, sustainable families. Celebrate those families. Understand so that you can choose when you're planning a family what is going to be the best way for you to do your family consciously.
Or in other words, I would also like to say, just let people know you're not living in the Flintstones era. This is another world compared to where our grandparents came from. Get over it. Family is different. It will be different. We're adding a little flavor. We're not trying to take away from tradition.
So what was the reaction though when you told your families about your co-parenting arrangements? Were they happy for you?
My family was very hesitant. They always thought, oh, Dawn, don't worry about it. You're going to find a guy to get married. And I was in 2 long-term relationships. One when I was in my 20s, the other when I was in my 30s, both 10 years. And it didn't happen for me. I think they just thought it would eventually, but I got tired of waiting on guys. And I thought I need to take matters in my own hands. So I luckily found the right guy.
So Ivan, this whole thing is about picking the right person. I mean, it's bad enough trying to pick a romantic partner, but pick somebody who you're going to be with in some way, connected to for the entire lifetime of your child. How do you even do that? I mean, that's what you're helping people do with your website, Madamely.
Yeah, I mean, I think you know, there's been a seismic shift in how people, you know, view and determine what a family is in the last 30 years, and with divorce rates at 50% and gay marriage legal in so many states and eventually all over the world, all these different family structures are popping up, and we're seeing that they can work because children can grow up well in a traditional family, or they can grow up screwed up like in any other situation. And I think with my family, we're just a community where everyone is ready to have a child, and we're trying to help you find someone that shares your vision and values for how you want to raise your child, and they all want someone to have some kind of involvement in their child's life, and Fabian and Dawn are great examples, and Rachel, and there's thousands of people around the world with these modern family structures that are making it work. And marriage is great, but it's not for everyone. It doesn't work all of the time. We're not saying one is better than the other. It's just another viable option for people to consider.
So how does it work? I'm on your website, and there's a questionnaire that I could fill in to find my co-parent. What's in that questionnaire?
We ask a lot of questions about determining your most important criteria. You talk a little bit about who you are, what you're looking for, how important is religion to you? Do you want to raise your child the same religion as you? Is that a deal breaker? Because then we're only going to introduce you to people that are open to doing that with you. We talk about your income, your profession, your lifestyle. How do you see yourself raising your child? Do you see them going to public school, private school? There's hundreds of questions, compatibility questions that you can answer, and you say how important each one is to you, that the other person feels the same way, and then we make recommendations based on that.
So Dawn, Femi asked how it works and how you find a co-parent. Our community wants to shift this a little bit and say, how does it work once you have found that other person? And some people are bringing up some of the stickier aspects, the legal aspects. On Twitter, the law is changing as a result of the many new types of families emerging today, accommodating co-parenting. And this person references Florida and California, but in many places, the law does not necessarily speak to these sorts of unions. So what do you do once you have found someone? In your case, you found, or Fabian found you, legal documents. How did that work?
Eventually Fabian and I will probably write up a legal document. Fortunately, right now, we are committed to going on a leap of faith with that. And because we did such thorough question asking of each other before he even came to Nebraska and before I even got pregnant, we knew that we were on 100% solid ground.
Give us an example. What did you ask him? What were the quizzes backwards and forwards?
Oh gosh, we asked about parenting styles, spirituality. We gave examples of, if our son or daughter did this, what would you do in this instance? To be honest, I think we had a million questions that we asked. A lot of the typical ones, as far as income, financial, those are all good to ask, but I think the fundamental questions are who you are as a person, who's your core. And
you basically got to get along with the person. I found with Dawn, one of the biggest things with her, upon our first conversations, we were laughing like children, and we just hit it off so well. I think that's important to show how we would raise a child, and with good energy and just, positive vibes, and that means a lot. I didn't have that when I was growing up.
See, I've got this picture of your first meeting from your website, and it's got meet the co-parents. Look at you hugging it up. Was that the very first time that you actually met each other?
That was about 2 seconds as we laid eyes on each other.
Wow.
I came from behind. Yeah, it's pretty awesome.
Wow. What kind of chemistry do you have then? What is your relationship? Because you're not married. You're not lovers. What are you?
I always say that we're like Will and Grace, but I liken it more to the Lucy and Gay Ricardo. Do you know what I mean? It's just
Wow. Laugh a minute.
Yep.
And I think this is an incredible example of when it just naturally gels in this chemistry and they found each other, and that's awesome. But not everybody's going to have that, and you can't really count on that. You have to do your diligence. You have to find someone who's not just your match and your core values, and you go to all those questions in, but you also have to make sure that you have an intense commitment to your agreement. And I think that you guys honor each other and nobody's replacing each other, right? It's like you're committed for the long haul to be parents, and even if you met someone else, that's your core family is intact, correct?
Right, and I think you were fortunate enough to co-parent with people that you already knew, which was great for you because you knew that those guys for quite a while. But with Fabian and I, we had to do our due diligence because we were strangers. We were across the world from each other. So not only did we have the chemistry, but we asked 1,000,001 questions, a lot of questions that not even typical friends might ask, because this was our sole purpose, was to have a child together and to be a family.
And also we haven't been perfect either. We've struggled just like anybody else, and we're very honest about it. It has not been perfect. We're writing the story as we go, and that's pretty much it. We're not saying it's been, you know, a fairy tale for us. We argue like brother and sister. We have all the ups and downs, but we're still here. And we're making this work.
I'm just gonna
What are the biggest challenges? Are you gonna ask that, Femi? I was gonna ask what are those challenges?
You can ask that. 1 second. I just want to ask something, because people are going to be wondering about this. This is a picture of Dawn and this is Fabian when you were expecting Indigo, and people are going to be wondering, how did the baby get in your tummy, Mummy? Because they're going to be curious, and I'm just going to go there and ask you in a very polite way, if you don't mind me asking that.
Absolutely. Okay, picture this.
I hope it's not going to be too scary. Go ahead.
No. Fabian, we were at home.
Yep.
And Fabian was in his room. I was in my room. We had sterile supplies. Fabian produced his contribution in a cup, in a syringe.
And then I came out and we hugged each other. We actually had a moment. We didn't make this cold and here. We meditated before, we hugged each other, and we made it as special as we could. And then she went away into her room and I went away.
And then 9 months later, this is what happened on my laptop. She says, fading to black, and there we see the little munchkin. All right, so
guys, that was the first try, right? That was on the first try, I think, or
the second month.
Second try.
That's not bad. So I know, Rachel, you wanted to jump in with the challenges, but I'm just going to let Malika go first with the community, and then we'll bounce back to you, Malika.
Well, because Rachel asked about the challenges, Rachel, I will direct this to you, because in your previous answer, you said the parties involved have to have a committed agreement. So our community is saying, well, what if that doesn't happen? Natalia says, what if co-parents decide to quit their relationship in a few years? How will they regulate the decisions regarding that child? We actually got an answer online from someone who is the product of a non-traditional relationship. B9A says, my parents had me because my mother decided she wanted a child. There was no relationship except raising me. I guess it could be compared to a post-divorce family, he says, without the trauma of divorce. So this person says he didn't go through that trauma, but others are asking what happens when someone decides to opt out of this commitment.
There's risk to everything, and agreement is only as good as the people making it. And this is also, an emerging legal framework is coming around this kind of after the fact. So it's very important to make sure that you are talking to somebody who shows a track record of keeping agreements, who has long-term relationships that they've kept and nurtured, that you get to know them in every way possible, their family, their history, their background, and that there's a complete disclosure, because the agreement is not going to be good if the person that you're choosing can't make an agreement. So but it is advantageous, like your person who wrote in, that it's stabilizing, because if there's no breakup in the conventional sense, then there's a strong potential that because you're together for the child, that you're going to stay parenting that child.
I'm looking at the pictures of your two great kids, and they both have different dads, right?
Yes,
okay.
Two different parenting partners.
So how does that work for sort of Christmas, for instance, or birthdays? How does that family unit work? How do you think of yourself as a family?
Well, my son has been on his own for like 5 years now. So I hope he comes back for Christmas, but he's a very independent adult. My daughter is 5, and I'm living together in a kind of a family compound. We have 2 houses on the same property, so we have a certain amount of privacy, but we also have the continuity of our family together. Christmases are awesome because we have, you know, both families where neither of us are single parenting. We have a really warm environment of that's like a village, really supporting our daughter. So she's doing great.
Right. And what about Jesse though? Jesse is old enough for you to actually say whether he likes his family setup or he doesn't. And particularly teenagers and young adults, they're very direct. Have you heard anything that made you think, I didn't think about that before I embarked on this kind of family?
Actually, his father and I were really worried and concerned that our unique kind of family would, you know, make him feel alienated or different. And when we started to talk to him about that when he went to school and he was 7, he was like, what surprised me is that how proud he was of us. And that he said, you know, most of my friends' parents are fighting and breaking up. And that's why they all want to be at our house. It's really peaceful here. You guys respect each other. And I'm not saying all marriages are like that, but and for some reason in our world, that was his perspective.
So even when he
saw us as a safe haven.
So Rachel, be honest here, even when he was 14 or 15 and having a tantrum, he never pointed out his family setup as a reason for why life wasn't fair.
Oh, never. No.
Wow.
Actually, he's always been very proud of us.
I want to call him. All right. Malika.
Well, Yvonne, I want to bring you in here because a couple of times our panelists have mentioned the word "it takes a village" or "it's like a village," which is a very global concept. But online, our community wants to know whether co-parenting is a Western invention. El Haji writes in, this piece is an inkling of Western concepts of marriage, current observable social phenomena. Another person says, I really think this kind of behavior is growing in Europe and America. These two civilizations, this person says, are destroying slowly the world. A bit hyperbole there, but Yvonne, your take on this, because your site, of course, is open to hundreds of thousands, and it's all over the world, correct?
Correct, yeah. We have, most of the members are in the US, but we have a significant amount in the UK, Germany, Spain, Norway, Brazil, Australia. So it is a worldwide thing. Look, people have been having kids, you know, in marriage, out of marriage for thousands of years. So this is a slight redefining of those type of arrangements, just defining what it is exactly. Because, you know, with co-parenting, you know, ideally, both parents are going to be involved, and both parents feel like the child's going to need a masculine and a feminine influence. And you know, more babies are being born outside of wedlock in the world these days than are. In the 60s, I think the stat was only about 4% of babies born were to single women who were unmarried. Now it's about 42% as of a few years ago. And that stat is only increasing.
Ivan, you run this website called Modality, and you're putting together lots of different couples, bring them together as great parents. Let me think. Are you a dad yet?
I'm not a dad, but I want to be a dad.
You want to be a dad? You have the information at your fingertips. Are you going to go traditional, or are you going to go Modamily style?
Well, you know, when I first started the site, you know, part of the reason was that, you know, I'm 38 right now, and I was about 36 when I
I'm not getting any younger.
Yeah, exactly. And I like to have kids before I'm 40. You know, I don't want to be in my 70s and have a teenager. I'd like to be able to maybe enjoy my older years.
Are you dating?
Yeah. Well, the funny thing was, you know, shortly after I started the site, I started dating someone, and she has 2 children from a previous relationship. So, you know, I am helping raise them. I do take them to school. I do, you know, help them with their soccer and their guitar lessons and their tennis.
I'll let you off. We'll come back to you in 2 years' time when you're 40. See how many little kidlets you've got running around there. Thank you all very much to all of our guests. We are going to be talking more about co-parenting on the online show at stream.aljazeera.com, which means that you have to go online to see what happens next. Meanwhile, I can tell you about the next show. Do animal rights trump religious rights? Denmark's new restrictions on halal and kosher slaughtering is stirring some debate. We will talk about that on the next program, but in the meantime, you know where you'll find us online in the post show. Thanks for watching. Take care. Hello there, this is the Streams Online Post Show. Today we're talking about co-parenting, so let's get right back to the conversation. Rachel, so you've written a book, Family by Choice. Does that make you a co-parent? Oh wow, there you go. She came prepared. Do you now feel that you're a co-parenting expert?
I certainly am the authority. I don't think there's anyone else that's speaking openly that has as much experience as I. I have 24 years experience in 2 partnered parenting families. By the way, I like the term partnered parent better because co-parenting is often associated with post-divorce, and this is an intentional partnership for the purpose of parenting.
All right, so if you're a self-confessed expert, then Dawn has a thing or two to say about that. Because, you know, to be honest, any parenting book, you can raise your eyebrows and go, what makes them the expert? Dawn, what's your take?
You know, I just think...
First of all, co-parenting has been around, just like Yvonne said, for, what, 1,000 years? So no one has invented co-parenting. And you know what I mean? No one should have that crown. So basically we're all learning as we go.
But do you think a book, when you guys first started out, do you think a book would have been quite helpful to you? Like some kind of guideline?
Because we're creating this, every story is different, and we could not have been more prepared. We thought we were prepared. Life throws things at you. You never know. There's no book that's going to predict these things. So yeah, little basics. There's a guideline, but absolutely not. You know.
Don't spit it out.
I think the point is that it's so.
I would love for you to read my book. Read my book.
I think there does need to be guidelines, because so many people, especially that go on my website, have no idea. You know, they've never heard of co-parenting before. They don't know how to go about it. You know, I think there is a responsible way to go through the process, and that's what we try to help you, guide you through. And then, you know, when you do decide to have a child with someone and you're not married, you do not have, you know, the same legal protection. So it is good to draft a co-parenting agreement where you can, you know, discuss all the important issues, custody, financials. You know, it can include life insurance. It can include estate planning. You know, we do recommend you see therapists and make sure you guys are, you know, whenever there's issues, that you have a third person that's, you know, helping mediate through these things, because it is, you know, these people are not traditionally, you know, in physical love. So there's, you know, it's quite a different relationship than, say, a boyfriend, girlfriend, or married couple, you know, who are deciding to have a kid. And there is a strategic way to approach it. And look, every situation is different, but we try to provide a resource for, you know, if you need a lawyer, here's a lawyer in your area. If you need a therapist, if you need a fertility doctor, you know, just to have consultations with people to know your options.
So, Ivan, you're not even a dad, as you pointed out. So how did you even get into this in the first place?
Sure. I mean, you know, when I started the site, I was in New York at the time. I was out to drinks with a bunch of my girlfriends who were all kind of like Dawn, you know, in their late 30s, coming in and out of relationships. And we were all on the more mainstream sites, the Match.coms, the eHarmonies, and OkCupids, but nobody was really meeting someone serious to take that next step in their life. And some of the women, you know, they felt a tremendous pressure, the ticking of the biological clock, and they're like, oh my God, I just broke up with this guy. That means I have to meet someone else really quickly and then get to know them for a couple years. And then if that doesn't work, then I have to start all over again. But I really feel like I need to have a child, you know, in the next couple of years, or it's going to become very difficult for me to do so, because there is, you know, time pressures, especially for women, but for men also, because, you know, like I said, you don't want to be, not many people want to be, you know, in their 70s and dealing with a teenager. So men like to have kids before they're 50, you know, ideally, or in their 30s and 40s.
Except for Hugh Hefner, so we got to give him credit for that.
Well, Hugh can do whatever he wants, yeah.
Well,
so, yeah.
As far as Rachel saying that she's an authority on co-parenting, I would definitely agree she's an authority on her own experiences, but everybody's experiences are different, and I'm an authority on my own life and my own experience. I don't want to pretend or have the ego to say that I am an expert or an authority on anybody else's experience on choosing a potential co-parent or raising a child. Right. I think I'm definitely learning a ton, and I'm sure Rachel's book is very good, and it might give insight on co-parenting with a friend that you already know for several years, but It's
as
very
far as meeting
different.
a stranger, there's
it's very different.
You read it before you decide what it's about, okay?
All right, so we're moving on from the book issue and going back to the online community.
Well,
send us a copy, Rachel. We'll read it.
And of course, she did hold up the book, so that is all there for everyone to see. But Rachel, I actually want to go back to you with a little bit more pushback from online. Hiba writes in some criticism. She says, I think this is a very interesting idea, but it borders on, quote unquote, having children for the sake of having children. Another person writes in with some more criticism. David says, I'm adopted, and I think it's a very bad idea to co-parent. So there were some more tweets like that on the gist of, this is perhaps a selfish thing to do. Why don't you look at adoption? What do you say to people who tell you that?
I have a very good response for that. I think when I was looking at different options, including adoption, I knew 3 couples, 3 friends of mine. They were all married, and they were all wanting to adopt, and not one of them was able to have a child on their own biologically. And when I was looking at adoption too, I thought, you know what, the chances are high that I can have a child of my own. How would that make those other couples feel if I was able to adopt a child and they weren't? It just didn't make sense to me. And so I wanted to be able to have my own child first. And as far as having a child to have a child, what about married couples? What's the difference?
Rachel, what's your take on that?
Well, I don't know if you know this, but I have 2 adopted teenagers. I'm also a foster mom, and I'm pro all things making family, especially if you have a burning desire to be a parent and to contribute that, if it's adoption or having a biological child. I think that building family is what we're talking about, not having a child for the sake of having a child, but building a family and having some, something bigger than yourself to be a part of. I think adoption is also something you can do. You don't have to just have a biological child. You can also adopt. You can do all those things. I think opening the world to possibilities of building family is what we're talking about. I'm also looking for another co-parent. Yvonne has been helping me make great introductions and matches, and I'll be pregnant again by the end of 2014 with a suitable parenting partner that I met online.
What are you looking for, Rachel? What are you looking for your next co-parent? And why don't you use one of the other 2 that you already have available?
Well, they both were very complete with one child. My daughter's dad is 67. My son's dad is in his 60s also.
So they're tired, basically.
Well, actually, they're satisfied. They're both very young and vital also. But for me, I'm still ready. I still want to have more children, and I really love to expand my family. So I have these great candidates. I've been looking and courting real seriously for 2 years now. I've got down to a few excellent candidates thanks to Yvonne. I really love his site.
So Rachel, you're courting for a co-parent, but
will you have sex? Will you have sex doing this, or will you do it the artificial route?
And actually that's a good question, because I really believe that the best practice is to make this courtship a platonic family bond that's not a romantic bond. If you're going to do a romantic bond, you might as well have a conventional, traditional family. But if that's not going to be suitable for you, what I'm demonstrating, what I'm teaching is that you can do a family by choice in a platonic parenting partnership, and that can lead to a very intact family, which I've done, and I plan to do. And that's what's really exciting. I'm glad I get to tell you that I am too about to do this with a new person that I've met online also.
What are they like, Rachel? Tell us. Spill the beans.
Oh, my candidates.
Candidates. Wow.
My candidates. They have to be very physically fit. I have a strong core value about staying fit and healthy, because you want to be alive and thriving for your children. You're also a role model, and having a financially strong person. I've been a good earner in my family, and I want somebody who's my equal as an earner, so that when I have maternity leave, my family's provided for, and we keep moving forward.
Wow, this is some checklist.
Perfect.
All right, so this is
perfect.
Yeah, this is some checklist. So people watching you are going to say, well, she's really bright and eloquent and beautiful. Why don't you just date and get a man who wants to be part of her family unit? It's not like you've run out of time. You still have kids. you've had kids. It's not like you're never going to have children. Why don't you look for a man to be a romantic partner as opposed to a co-parent?
Thank you, Femi. I've always had that option. I mean, I've dated and I've had great, suitable, interested men in my life, but I had such a good experience raising my child in a parenting partnership with his dad, and I felt so confident in that way of the conscious putting together a family based on raising a child together. I just felt a little insecure about the love and romance thing. I mean, is this person going to leave me for someone else? I just didn't feel as confident. Doesn't mean that someday I won't find a partner, but right now the priority for me is to have the children I dream of having while I'm fertile. And I feel like
I need to ask a question. Will you teach your children about relationships? Will they be able to have relationships themselves, marry someone, or go their own route, or what's the plan there?
Of course. I mean, human relationships is everywhere, and there's thriving marriages and in families. And all the relationships that I've had that came close to being a traditional marriage were healthy and vital. And I have our friendships to this day. So I think keeping intact, thriving relationships is what we need to really role model for our children. And because relationships can change and they will grow, but how do you sustain them? How do you stay committed? How do you keep renewing them?
So I have a question. When you said that you have kind of like a compound where your family lives, with this new potential co-parent, will you have him live on your compound too with the baby, or are you going to have everybody live like in the same house?
I think for me, I really believe it's ideal that children need to have their parents as close in proximity as possible, and they thrive and they want both parents. So we are going to have to move to a bigger property. We've been shopping for a bigger property that we can have a duplex or a small, like a fourplex, and everybody can have a little bit of their own private space, but the children can safely move between the houses.
All right, so I am going to call time on this because Rachel, you've been very giving with your information about your private life, as to have Dawn and Ivan, and also Fabian as well. So it's really great for you to actually come on and talk about it. We really appreciate that. I'm going to give you one sentence to give us as a takeaway from this conversation about co-parenting, because for many of our international audience, it's a new thing. What's the last thought that you want to leave us with, Ivan?
You know, just that it's a viable option that is, you know, just as good as any of the other options, either being adoption or anonymous sperm donor or marriage. You know, any of those options can turn out well and turn out not as well, and it's really up to the people who are involved to make that happen. So it's really a case-by-case basis.
All right. So your one sentence, Rachel, would be what?
Prepare, prepare, prepare. Whichever option you choose, make it as conscious as possible. Get materials, see counselors, see lawyers.
All right, we got the message.
Open to learn.
We got the message. Prepare. Fabian.
Get to know the person and ask 1,001 questions.
Very good. Dawn.
Ditto. Ditto.
There you go. Give me 5. Woo.
All right, thank you to all of you. Let's see what the community have to say as we wrap this conversation up.
Well, I'm going to leave you with two kind of competing views. Ruwaida says, I'm not saying that co-parenting is wrong, but it's new, so it will take people time to adjust to the idea. On the other hand, though, TMS Rouge tweets in, co-parenting actually is a fancy hipster term for what African village moms have been doing for centuries, collective parenting.
I like that. I also like the pictures of the kids on my laptop. So control room, are you ready? This is Jessie and Grace. These are Rachel's kids. And then this is little Indigo. This is Fabian and Dawn's little girl. So thank you very much for being part of this conversation. We will tell you about what's coming up on the next program, which is about animal rights. Do they trump religious rights? Denmark's new restrictions on halal and kosher slaughtering. Well, that's stirring debate. We will see you online, and we'll see you for the next show tomorrow. Thanks for watching.